Man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the situation.
How are you doing? Thank you very much for keeping it locked right here on Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. City, remind us why home-based care by the Aga Khan University Hospital is a big thing.
Nobody wishes to be unwell. Nobody wishes to go to hospital. But when you need to, all you're going to seek is what we call health care.
Yeah.
Now, the Aga Khan University Hospital is saying you do not need to go to hospital to receive some of this care. You can be at home, and this care can be brought to you. It can be provided for you in the comfort of your home. If you have need to have testings done, if you have need to have laboratory services, they will send a unit who will do the needful. The results will be taken to the hospital for the testing, and the results will be brought back to you. If it is medicine that you need, that same medicine, once you've been diagnosed and the appropriate medicine has been prescribed, that will also be brought to you in the comfort of your home. Now, tell me, if you're talking about healthcare being near to you, this is not healthcare being next to you. This is healthcare being brought to you at your home.
Imagine that. It's basically just taking care of you in very many ways, more ways than one. Even the other thing that you also mentioned earlier, physiotherapists, they will send a physiotherapist to you. So, you are you need to be going at it to hospital for physiotherapy. You don't have to get up, go for physio, go back home. Get up tomorrow, go for physio, go back home. You can get home-based care. Physio will be sent to you as you continue receiving your treatment. This is a very, very, very good thing. It's all about, nowadays in life, hatutaki pressure.
Pressure mingi mingi. Apana taka.
Hatutaki pressure. We discovered convenience. Now we're going after convenience in more ways than one. This is convenience, healthcare close to you. Convenience, just like Naivas. Naivas is expanding and having all these stores opening close to you. So if you want shopping, you don't have to think at it. Sasa niko hapa. And the nearest Naivas sijui is No, Naivas is close to you. And more Naivas stores are now becoming 24-hour stores. And even on top of that, you can download the Naivas app. And you can shop from the comfort of your home, your office, wherever, and the stuff will be delivered. It's all those things. Convenience. We are in the era of convenience. The soft life era, like they say, the Gen Zs, right? Our next guest is Wakili Willie Sotieno, Advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Good morning, Wakili.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Yes.
Good to see you.
Good to see you after such a long time.
You're looking well.
Good. Looking forward to today's court sessions.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you have in court today? You're always constantly
No, that is my...
battling one thing or the other.
No, they are not the controversial ones. These are now the real legal issues.
These are
not politically instigated legal issues. Yes.
Here is Mamba jurisprudence.
Jurisprudence.
Very good.
Yes.
Sawa. City. Why don't you jurisprudate this Wakili with the lawyer? Something called today's proverb.
Yes.
Where are we this week?
We are in the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Okay?
You were telling us something about the Carthaginians came. Who
you see,
are these people?
Well, the thing is this. There are those who argue that the Berbers, these are communities that you will find in the northern part of Africa, were the earliest inhabitants of this particular land. But the thing about the history of Algeria is when you look at the many civilizations we've had, and you look at some of the major wars we've had, that's why I mentioned that the Carthaginians, they themselves were serious colonialists. They rampaged that region right up to Europe, okay? But then you look at the Roman Empire. They also had a very, very big impact in Algeria. The French had the biggest, because if there was a province of France that was in Africa, it was Algeria. You had well over 1 million French men and women who lived there, and they were French people. They were in Algeria, but they were French. It was a genuine province. So when the War of Independence began, that War of Independence was a serious one because it even became a civil war. Algerians fighting against each other depending on where it is someone had a leaning.
Yes.
I will talk about the casualties and I will talk about the harm and how the war in Algeria even affected the politics in France. It even got a government toppled and a new government came in. And the government that came in was led by somebody, I'm told the pronunciation, he's called Charles de Gaulle, a name like mine, but I'm told the French say it's not Charles, it's Charles. Okay? So that particular gentleman actually became the president of France and brought in very many changes, but that's a discussion for another day. All right. The proverb, friendship. We call it friendship, but without sincerity.
We call it friendship, but without sincerity.
Yes.
Well, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
It's actually just a proverb that warns you of people who are more of acquaintances. They don't come into your life with genuineness. So you're forced to be acquainted, but that doesn't mean you are friends, because they may not be sincere with you in a relationship.
And what would sincerity look like, Willis?
Sincerity is genuineness.
How does that look like?
Authenticity. I always say that all my friends, I look at who can I go to sleep with my eyes closed. If any of my friends was to be around me and I must sleep with my eyes closed, then that's a genuine friend. Someone who can watch your back.
Willis, you don't have friends, it is clear.
Someone who can watch your back. Otherwise, I have friends.
Willis.
I have many friends.
Hey, you also have many enemies.
Yes.
Of course.
Where's the lala one?
Actually, by the time you...
Eyes closed. You what? Listen, Adani have a very good friend in Kenya. His name is Raila Odinga. Well, he didn't say that they were very good friends. He just said he knows them from his very good friend, Narendra Modi, who's currently the Prime Minister of India.
Yes.
When he was Chief Minister of, what was that state called?
Gujarat. And the man was there for something like 12 years.
Yeah. And Raila was our Prime Minister here, and he had visited India, and Chief Secretary Narendra Modi introduced him to Adani, said, this businessman, top businessman.
Good businessman.
Top businessman. Top businessman. Right? If you become president, top businessman.
Engage with him.
Now Raila hears that Adani is involved, has done a PIP with JKIA, with the Kenya Airports Authority for JKIA. Is involved in PPP negotiation for power transmission lines in Kenya. There's a company associated with the Adani Group that's also, looking at helping us in the rollout of our healthcare system. And people are making noise and saying this Adani the other, or Adani is controversial, Adani cannot do these things, Adani will just... Raila comes out on Sunday and says, people, no, this is not the first time I'm hearing this name. I've heard this name before. In fact, I've heard this name from a very reliable source, who's now the leader of a country with they have the highest population now in the world, don't they?
The largest democracy.
Yeah? Yes.
The largest democracy in the world.
Yes.
The country with the most people in the world. And if that person can trust this company, and that company is doing very many jobs in that country, surely this cannot just be a fly-by-night briefcase enterprise. It's not. It's a big enterprise. Let's consider it. Do you think that changes things here?
No, it doesn't. The main issue here about Adani is not even the company per se. It's the process that is leading us to Adani being the new Gupta in Kenya. They can as well be all that is said about them. Top company, global contacts, big contracts, huge projects. They can do those projects. But in Kenya, we have Article 10 of the Constitution on transparency and accountability. How do you arrive at Adani as they want to do these projects? Look at, for example, now the energy thing they signed, 65 billion Kenya shillings. You ask yourself, why Adani? The same Adani you are giving the airport for free. They are not putting any coin on it. They are just going to use our money to build that airport. Now, the people of Kenya are saying, why this preferential treatment being given to one particular entity? Why can't we consider alternative models of funding, or even go through competitive process of bidding for people to look for these contracts? My preferred, as a person, let's take, for example, the energy, the Ketraco agreement. We have the Nairobi Stock Exchange here. You want to tell me, if Ketraco was to float its shares here at the NSC and invite Kenyans to bid, or government of Kenya was to float an energy bond that we want to raise 100 billion, Kenyans to buy, we want to use this money to invest a 5-year bond, or you go to NSC and you float shares, Kenyans will own this thing. Our problem is that we seem to be laying the red carpet for Indians to come here and colonize us. You are giving them contracts for 30 years. In 30 years, I assure you, none of the people in government today will be there in that government, even if they are lucky to be alive. They will not be there. But we are enslaving our grandchildren. We are turning some Indians to be their slave master. When our forefathers fought the white colonialists, we are now the ones, the same black people, laying the red carpet for an Indian to come here and take over our crown jewels. When will Kenyans own these assets?
You're mixing very many things there, Willis. On the one hand, you said it's okay if it was open bidding.
Yes.
And they came in.
Yes.
So whether they were Indians, were the people from Czechoslovakia called?
Czechs.
From
Czechs.
Slovakia.
Or Slovaks.
Slovaks,
Slovaks,
right? Whether they were Slovaks
Yes.
or Indians or Kenyans.
Yes.
And even if we were talking about Kenyans, whether it's Kenyans from Mlima or from Western or from Coast, it doesn't matter. And then on the other hand, now you start saying they are foreigners.
Oh,
Do you have a problem with them being foreigners, or do you have a problem with...
I said, if you wanted to bring foreigners, do an open bidding. Let's get the best in the market. That's one option. My preferred option is, at what point will Kenyans ever own these assets? And I'm saying we have the NSC. Go and float shares in the NSC, rights issue. Or float an energy bond. Let Kenyans buy the bond. And use the money to build the infrastructure. And we'll be earning the dividends, because at the end of the day, it is our money that will be used to pay off Adani. So do you prefer the Indian to take that dividend, or the Kenyan in Moroni?
It's an option.
So if you're looking at the best interest of the Kenyan, which will be the best? For me,
There are
the
options.
best will be the best. When you're in public office, you're holding a public trust. Give your people the first opportunity. If they are unable to, then open it up to the second tier. Otherwise, look at countries like Saudi Arabia. We hear people say, stories of Jabba, that in Dubai people don't work, but they are paid by their government. It's not like they're paid for just sitting there. You'll find that when somebody is investing in that country, their government says that you must share, give certain a percentage of your shareholding to locals. So these locals will be earning dividends. When will Kenyans ever get to that level? Are you telling me that these Kenyan people who have lent, the Kenyan government has borrowed their 5.7 trillion from their deposits in bank, cannot raise 100 billion for Ketraco, cannot raise 200 billion for JKI? They can. When will we ever own these assets as Kenyans? That is the model that I'm proposing. So that when you see somebody is more obsessed with giving foreigners an opportunity, of course there's a black Kenyan behind him. There's a Kenyan Adani. There's a Kenyan Adani who is trying to own these things for himself. Adani is just the face. Adani is just but the front to hoodwink us that we've gotten FDI, direct foreign investment. There's nothing direct there. It is money that somebody has stolen from the people of Kenya or has illegally acquired, and then he goes to get a foreign partner who becomes the front, and then he comes to own our crown jewels.
No, that's marketplace gossip.
No, Eric, it can be marketplace gossip. But from the executive itself, they've told you, none other than the former president has told you we lose an average of 2 billion per day.
Yes.
That is not me.
Yes.
No one has ever challenged him.
Yes.
I'm also aware, if you look at our Auditor General's report every year, you look at the colossal sums that people are losing. So probably those are the people who are coming to here as Adani.
Probably. Now you are telling.
Yes.
That's the thing I'm saying. You are picking different pieces of ugali that was left over from like 2 weeks and putting it all together into one piece of ugali and calling it one ugali.
It's still ugali. Ugali by any other name.
From different homesteads. Hii ilipikwa na unga ya kisiagi,
hii ilipikwa na jogo,
hii ilipikwa na jogo. Those are different ugalis, and you put them all together and think this is ugali. No, Willis. Let's be cautious here in terms of saying, let's be fair. Let's be fair to everyone. Let's be fair to those who are making decisions in government. Let's be fair to the investors. Let's be fair to Kenyans. And say, so what is the issue here?
The issue that I said we start with is you have JKI, you have Ketraco. Nobody's disputing these are public assets.
Why have we left out healthcare?
And in fact, add healthcare. Add there now that shift share. And there's more. Even in energy, Ketraco is just the beginning. There's geothermal in energy. Now, what is not disputed, this is public asset.
Yeah.
The second thing is we want to leverage and raise more funds to improve their capacities or their efficiencies. Not disputed. The third point is the how, which is the preferred model that we are seeing Kenya Kwanza and William Ruto pursuing. Their preferred model is to go to India and look for Adani. Because even if you look at the contracts Adani has signed with Kenya, they are being signed within a day. Somebody is moving from India, making a proposal the same day, takes to KA the same day, takes goes to Treasury, Ministry of Transport the same day, goes to Treasury. Everything is approved in one day. You just write a letter to the MD of KA asking for a meeting. You'll get a response after 32 days. And yet, this is just a meeting. But somebody talking of colossal sums of money, everything is done at rocket speed.
Yeah, but you've actually gotten to the heart of the matter. Somebody talk about colossal sums of money.
Yes.
If we look at the anatomy of how we do business in Kenya, the moment there's a colossal amount of money, a lot of people can see their interests being taken care of.
Yes.
Because there's enough to be divided around and for everybody to feel, yes, this thing has been divided well. And you're saying, and at the cost of the citizenry.
That is what my argument, that if it is a colossal sum of money and their benefit, they move at supersonic speed. But my argument is this. If it involves a public asset, what should be driving a decision maker is what is called public interest. What is in the best interest of the people of Kenya? Now we need to improve JKI, for example.
Yes.
Which are the funding models that we can use? So the decision maker says, these are colossal sum of money, 200 billion, maybe I'll also get a cut here. So you need to move quickly, everybody. Take your box quickly. Because we are the ones ring-fencing this thing. And when you see that kind of supersonic speed, you are not seeing public interest in it. I'm saying, if you are concerned in public interest, you'll say, can I give Kenyans the first opportunity to own this? And how can Kenyans own this? There are models that Kenyans can own this. And they'll find the money. Eric, you can't tell me that between you and me and the 1 million listeners who are out there, if you are all told to remove only 5,000 or 2,000 shillings to contribute to a bonds issue, and we are seeing that there will be dividends. I mean, JKI will never make a loss. KA never made any loss. JKI, anybody who walks into that airport pays money. You go by Uber, you go by Cityopa, you go by whatever model, you drive your own private car. That is even before you start flying. On your passenger ticket, there's a passenger levy that is levied for airport infrastructure development. So KA will always make money. JKI will never make a loss. So you tell a Kenyan, I mean, we are giving you an opportunity to own a piece of JKI, contribute your money and be paid dividends commensurate with your contribution. Kenyans will put the money in. We will become the lords of the country, little kings of Kenya.
I agree.
But
you also agree that that's one option.
And that is one option. And I said...
And nowhere in the law does it say that is the primary option.
That is why I said, you ask yourself, what is in the best interest of the Kenyan? Which is the best?
Can I ask a different question on this? What does our laws, what does it say about an investment such as this one? Is there a path that is laid out clearly?
In my view, I'll start you with what we call the Public Procurement Asset Disposal Act, which had a very elaborate process. Open tender, you can do single sourcing, or you can do restricted tendering.
And the circumstances under which, yes?
Subsequently, this 13th Parliament, the one that I say is a caste parliament, came out with the PPP, Public-Public Partnership Act. And Parliament sits down as the people's representatives and decides to remove the requirement for parliamentary approval for a PPP.
Who have they given the approval to?
It's the executive. Nowadays, these PPPs don't have to go to Parliament for approval. Now, it means executive in onchos can sit and sign off a PPP without even the people's representatives looking at it.
Interesting.
And that is what now, if you look at Kenya Kwanza, This is the model that they've adopted. This is the model of everything they want to do. They are going under PPP. They are not going under the public procurement and asset policy.
Okay, you've answered the question. Well, now, this PPP, there's a word there, public, isn't there?
Yes.
It doesn't require public participation.
Public participation is a dictate of Article 10 of the Constitution. Even if you're doing a PPP, you are still bound by Article 10 on the principles of governance and the national values. One of the principles of governance is public participation. Then we have transparency. Then we have accountability. So even in your PPP,
you must have public
you must still do public participation. You cannot say that the Constitution doesn't apply to our project.
Yes, but then we have a small snag here. Our laws don't actually give us the nuts and bolts of public participation and the threshold that must. Or does it exist, or was it put in place and I don't know?
No, the laws, we've not developed a public participation law, but the courts have rendered themselves on this issue so many times that anybody who wants to follow the law, there are enough court decisions, including the Supreme Court of Kenya, that have set out parameters within which to conduct public participation, what will be considered to be qualitative and quantitative.
Now, in a case such as this one, what sort of public participation would we need to see in order to understand that that threshold has been met?
I will say the first aspect of it is that you need to educate the public. Tell them, we have this project we want to do. You invite people to give their views on your proposed funding model, and what are the potential funding models. Give them all options. Say we can give it direct to a private entity. Another funding model, we can offer it a rights issue to the people of Kenya to buy. We can also do a bonds issue to the people of Kenya to buy. Or we can just get a partner to come and work with the entity. So in your qualitative public participation, you give all these options and invite the people to give their comments and suggestions on how to improve it. Then as a decision maker, you go and make your decision and you ask yourself, you give reasons why you chose the single-sourced PPP with Adani as opposed to the popular sentiments that says the people of Kenya wants a rights issue on JKI. Why did you opt for this one and not this one? So you give your options. Then you say we are giving it to Adani. We have no issue with Adani as an entity. We have a major issue with Adani in regard to how it is being brought into the Kenyan governance space.
So it's a process.
But the process largely. But also, if you look at the PPP Act at Section 41, one of the checklists that you look at is if that company has been involved in any jurisdiction in which it operates, has been under any investigations, has been accused of issues of tax, non-compliance with tax regimes. So that Adani has serious investigations in Australia. Adani's officials, some of them have been convicted. So when the Treasury executives were asked this question, you know what they said? That in India there's nothing that happened to them. But the law is not about India, their country of origin. The law says in any jurisdiction in which it operates.
And then what does the law say? So if you find one case is enough.
It's enough. It's enough because
is that what the law says?
Yes, that's what the law says. That once you listen, look at the Act, Section 41. No, it's not me saying. Look at Section 41. For as long, let me read it for you.
Read it.
Let me get it for you.
You get it as we go into a break. I want you to get it where the law says that if you find that there has been a case against this entity anywhere in the world, don't proceed. Even if it's one.
Yes.
And the entity is global.
Yes.
It's
any jurisdiction in which it operates. Yes.
28 minutes to 9. Wakili Willis Otieno, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, is our guest. We are looking at the Adani deal and everything that's happening. So, former Prime Cabinet Secretary, he was Minister. Former Prime Minister and opposition leader Raila Odinga has said, well, as far as he's concerned, he has full confidence in this Adani company being able to deliver. Wakili will read us the law.
I can read it for you even now.
Okay, read it. Now, you found it?
Due diligence, that's Section 41. Yeah. Due diligence on privately initiated proposals. The Directorate, in coordination with the contracting authority, shall, before commencing an evaluation, an evaluation of a private initiated proposal, conduct due diligence and confirm that the private entity is not corrupt, has not engaged in acts of corruption, has not been sued or convicted on account of acts of corruption, is not insolvent, under receivership or bankrupt, or his affairs not being admitted by a court or judicial officer, then is tax compliant in all jurisdictions in which it has local tax presence and in its home country of registration and is not in default. So the finding of it is that you must first establish that this entity is in compliance. You confirm.
Yes.
If it's not in compliance, it's not tax compliant in any jurisdiction. In fact, the wording is any jurisdiction
Yes.
and in its home country.
Yes.
Now, Adani, in relation to Australia, has issues.
It's not even Australia, even India.
Even in India, he said that's the home country.
They have been scrutinized by the Supreme Court.
They have. Have
Yes.
they been found to be
The
No.
investigations,
not
the
tax
accusations.
compliant?
The point is, the court does not even say. The question is that we are looking at if there are complaints in relation to it.
You didn't read the word complaint, one.
I'm reading it. This is what I'm reading it for you. Is tax compliant in all jurisdictions in which it has local tax presence.
Tax compliant.
Yes. Yes.
Well, the investigation in India is over stock manipulation. Yes.
That is not in tax, but in Australia,
That's not-
it's issues of tax.
By the way,
Has it been-
stock manipulations have a direct correlation with,
With the
tax.
tax.
It's true, but
But
is
it does
tax-
not specifically
It doesn't
mention
say that you're tax. Yeah, it doesn't say that you're not tax compliant.
Will you be tax compliant if you're under? Will you be deemed to? Will KRA issue you with a tax compliance certificate when
but-
you're under?
But Willis,
When they were under their investigation.
Yeah, they can't issue.
Willis, remember that even in this country, when we have the Auditor General raising issues, it's an audit query. Okay, you're not guilty. It's just that further explanation is required. And one could look at the accusations that were made by this Hindenburg research, and they would say they're being investigated, but the investigations have not been concluded. So they're actually not guilty.
Yeah. It's still a going concern and
Yes.
an entity registered in that company,
Yes.
in that jurisdiction.
Yes.
Is it still doing business in the jurisdiction?
It is.
Still doing.
And I've told you, just like tax compliance, if today KRA was having a tax issue with me or any other person, once there is an issue,
Yeah.
they cannot issue the tax compliance because you are subject of a review.
Are you saying
But the
that
act-
the Australian tax authorities have not given them a tax clearance?
Of course, they are, but otherwise they will not be asking this question.
Have they given them a tax clearance or not?
We've not seen it.
Now, that's what the question is.
We've not seen it.
The director of PPP.
Yes.
Okay. If the director of PPP has not done that, that's the issue now. I'd be comfortable with you saying the Australian authorities have not cleared this company on tax compliance. The requirement is that the directorate of PPP shall establish whether they are tax compliant in all the jurisdictions. There is one in which they are not tax compliant. And for that reason, I find that the director of PPP did not do due diligence. Now, if we are not talking about that, Willis, let's take a break. 24 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.